He's about to start a tour of Australia with his Jazz at Lincoln Centre Orchestra.
Oh, 1, 2, oh, 1, 2, 3,
Wynton Marselis grew up in New Orleans, surrounded by his musical heroes, and in a family that seemed to have jazz in its blood.
So how you and your brother getting along?
A musical polymath, he studied classical. Though to jazz, he would return. With a skill and passion that captivated audiences and fellow musicians alike. The 9-time Grammy winner and Pulitzer Prize winner seems just as comfortable teaching music to school bands as he is playing with his Lincoln Centre Jazz Orchestra.
Boom, boom, boom. Where actually is that?
In Australia, he will be performing jazz classics as well as his symphonic jazz work, All Rise, with the Sydney and Melbourne Symphony Orchestras. Wynton Marselis, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you so much.
Maybe more than any other form of music, improvisation in jazz requires musicians to keenly listen to what others around them are doing. But it strikes me that one thing that makes you quite unique is the way you recognised really early on the extraordinary position you were in when you were young to listen to what the greats had to tell you.
Yes. Yeah, I was fortunate to grow up with a father that's a jazz musician. In a time that musicians would travel around the country as singles. And I was always with my father. And I was, even though I didn't necessarily like the music they were playing, I always liked to hear the stories they were telling. So Clark Terry played with Count Basie and with Duke Ellington's orchestra. Sweet Edison played with the great Count Basie orchestra that left Kansas City in the 30s. And Sonny Stitt and so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. I was always around them. And they're very colorful.
Why didn't you like the music?
The music is complicated, and there's a lot going on, and it wasn't something you heard on the radio. I liked the music everybody of my generation liked, and time, what we played, the dances, and what we sang, and the song. The music had words. Their music was no words, so it was challenging to listen to.
So, as you got older, though, you did go and seek those people out. People like Sweet Edison, Sarah Vaughan,
Yes.
Aretha Franklin. Why did you go and find them?
Well, first, just the knowledge they had, and they were very colorful and funny. And I had the opportunity to play with them, and many great lessons, like Sarah Vaughan really could play piano, like a virtuosic level. I remember I was 21, I played with her at Boston Pops, and it was on a television show, and I was showing off for her. I was playing a Duke Ellington song, Tonight I Shall Sleep with a Smile on My Face, and it's a complicated song in the key of E, and I knew nobody else 21 would know this song. So I didn't really know the bridge or section that well, and I played it, and she listened to it. She said, yeah, baby, you played that good, but you need to learn these songs thoroughly and off the recording. And then she went to the piano and played, and she played so much piano. At that time, I didn't know her pedigree. And I remember after she played, she said, you see what I'm saying? I thought, damn, she plays all that piano and she's singing.
Well, jazz has been called America's music, and its roots are obviously steeped in American history and culture. Where do you see jazz in 2023?
You know, jazz is always, it's been embraced by some elements of the culture, but it's always functioned like an orphan. I always laugh. It's like television shows I would go on in the 1980, 84, 85, the Phil Donahue show, or some kind of show that everyone in America would look at. The question first was, what are you here to do? Okay, you play a trumpet. Well, do you sing? Like, it was always like trying to figure out, how can I get you in a position where you don't actually play jazz so that we can like it? And the music, it requires education. And for there to be a national attempt to educate the nation about the greatness of Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington, it goes so much against the role that Black Americans many times are required to play.
Is there one particular album that stands out, Blue Note or anything from that period of the jazz greats that you gravitate to repeatedly, still listening with fresh ears?
I don't really go repeatedly back to a single document. You know, I go back to single concepts, maybe. Like maybe one concept will be a drone, like something going, yaw. I was talking this morning to Chris, a fantastic musician. We're talking about didgeridoo. And the piece, All Rise, that I wrote, I wanted the choir to sound like a didgeridoo. And it's supposed to go yong, 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 gang, yong, 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 yong. But I couldn't get the singers to do that, so they ended up saying gang, gang, but it wasn't gang, it was yong, yong, yong. And then we started to talk about Mongolian singing with the harmonics, and we started talking about the bagpipes and the drone and Indian music and the drone that they use, and Middle Eastern music and the drone. And I said, well, Mahler, in a Mahler symphony, we were talking earlier before the interview of Mahler's 8th Symphony. Mahler will sit on a pedal point for 4 minutes, 5 minutes easily, and just waft melodies on top of it. So I tend to go to concepts. That or the African 6/8 and the way it's interpreted in different claves. Ding, 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 ding. I listen to all music, or like a 6/8 rhythm, like a jig, a 6/8 march, Italian music, African 6/8, ding, 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 ding. I try to just listen to different styles and figure out how those fundamentals played out across the world.
Well, you've written a vast body of work in your own right, and you'll be playing some of the symphonic works while you're here in Australia. What is it about that intersection that feels so great to play? And what is jazz about an orchestra? And what is symphonic about a big band?
That's a great question. I got to give you credit for that one. And I think this was jazz about symphonic music is the underlying forms, the use of harmony, diversity of orchestration, the development of thematic material, the separation of things into families that interplay, like the percussion family is going to play a certain way. They have a high, medium, and low. The saxophone section has that. The trumpet section has it. The trombones and the brass section. The use of brass for punctuation and power, jazz bands use that. The use of saxophones, like a string section, we have that. The similarity of the relationship of melodies to counter melodies, of a kind of shine and a magic of discovery when ideas come up. Oh, I didn't know that. The juxtaposition of ideas that you find when you're improvising. That's the thing that's jazz about symphonic music. And what's symphonic about jazz is the orchestration of the instruments.
You said that jazz can improve your life. Has it improved yours?
I mean, if you could actually hear the music and understand what the great musicians like, you take your pick, and you know, it could be of the ones I've known, they were all dipped in rainbow dust. Like if you could have known John Lewis or Sweet Edison or Jerry Mulligan or Dave Brubeck, if you could have known them and what their aspirations were for the world. And it's also reflected in the younger musicians we have now. And I could talk about them. Nobody knows their names, but there's Sean Mason and Joe Block. And if you know them as even as younger people, and the spirit they have and the feeling that comes out of them, and Chris Lewis and Nicole Glover, and, you know, it's something in the music. It's a thing that's palpable, but it's also very etheric. It's very ephemeral.
It's a fantastic quality. Finally, world's most unfair question. Who are the 3 greatest jazz musicians of all time?
You know, the music is so much about a lot of people doing things.
It's about people doing things together.
That's the actual, it is reduced, it's put into the Western construct of a great person. I thought the beauty of jazz is that there are so many great people who on any given solo can manifest something you never thought of. It's not reduced just to the people who are famous or the people you know. It's like life. In any day or in any moment, a person can lift you up and show you another way to view the world.
Well, thank you so much for lifting us all up tonight.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank
Pleasure.
you. Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.